Welcome back at WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. The first round of the draft is up. We're going to have a lot of evaluation of a lot more picks, but what a Thursday night it was. We talked so much with this friend of ours, Dennis Koulatsos, who does the Thursday afternoon show, and of course, Sunday Sports Voice around here. This is a little bit of a Super Bowl for all of us who love football. It's something that comes every year. We compare them year to year, like first day of school or something like that. Thursday night was as unique, and we could talk about the Lamar acquisition a couple of years ago. If not for that, what the Ravens did on Thursday night would be unprecedented because trading back in, Hollywood Brown, we talk about what's going to happen on Thursday. I don't know if we're ever really prepared for exactly the way the board unfolds and the way the franchise really redoes itself this time every year. And when Hollywood Brown got dealt off, it's not last year anymore in the NFL.
And fortunately, Eric DaCosta and the front office, Nestor, they're prepared for whatever curveballs come their way during the NFL draft. And the Hollywood Brown was a story in and of itself. The wide receivers, biggest story that I've seen in several years. How many went in the first round as teams are jockeying for position. What I loved about the Ravens, though, Nestor, most of all, was the fact that if these two players pan out, they have that fifth-year option. So it's very smart to value these first-round draft picks. And you never know if these players, I guess their floor might be Pro Bowl, ceiling might be All-Pro. Not necessarily a position of needs, but stay true to the board, picking the best player available, which is what the Ravens do better than any team in the NFL.
Well, not only that, but the move up to get a center and the value of a center traditionally for the league and how few centers are ever taken in the first round over the course of 25 years, but then what the expectation level is for that. It's like taking a kicker in the draft or a punter or, or a safety, in the first round, which some guards actually went in the first round, which is very, very unusual from a valuation standpoint. But the wide receivers and the corners were the run for the league, and we all saw where that value is. Meantime, the Ravens take a first-round draft pick that they invested in a wide receiver and deal it off. These are not sexy positions, Dennis, safety and center, but you don't look very sexy when you don't have good players at those positions either.
No, I agree. I did a mock draft a few days ago with an Eagles fan while we alternated picks, and I had the pick at 14, and Kyle Hamilton was on the board, as was Jordan Davis. And for me, it was an easy pick. I took Kyle Hamilton because I had him rated as the fourth best player in this draft class. So again, best player available. You take the guy that you think it's going to take you there. And this is such a great scheme fit for the Ravens too, with Mike McDonald arriving. He played a lot, three safeties on the field, and Hamilton can play linebacker. He can play cornerback. He can play slot. You can line him up on the line of scrimmage if you want to. So I thought it was a phenomenal pick, like you said, not a sexy pick, but a very valuable pick. A 6'4", 220 pound safety with 33-inch arms. The guy's got range. Notre Dame kid is clean. You can't ask for a better draft pick.
He stood up. I thought he was a power forward, right?
I mean, it's
it's amazing that they put him in that position, right? That they didn't make him a corner, they didn't make him a wide receiver, nobody made him a tight end. We talk about Derwin James or and Ed Reed. I mean, you have to talk about Ed Reed when you're drafting safeties at 14, right?
Yeah, but Ed Reed was 5'11". This kid's 6'4". There is a bit of a difference. If he has half of the career that Ed Reed had, he'll be a very good ball player. And then Lindenbaum, the Ravens are a team that loves to impose its will on other teams, and this is the guy. We've heard the negative speak about him. He's not that big. He's got short arms. But if the guy's a mauler in a run game, and that's what they need, and having stability in front of Lamar Jackson for the next, several years. I'm sure they intend to sign Lamar. Lamar wants to sign with the Ravens eventually. And to have that battery between him and Lamar is so critical going forward, Ness.
Does Lamar want to sign with the Ravens? I mean, this Hollywood Brown thing is fascinating, and if you spend any time around them, around the team, even out on social media, that relationship that was there. It changes professionally. We've all worked with different colleagues at various points and had them leave one way or another by choice or by otherwise, and saying, well, is that person were we better with that person or without that person? In the case of Hollywood Brown, boy, they went all in on him as a first-round draft pick. The fact that he had these relationships with Lamar Jackson and asked for a trade, and this was orchestrated ahead of time. Unique set of circumstances dealing not just Marquise Brown, but the fact that they've dealt Hayden Hurst, the fact that
Mhm.
Orlando Brown requested a trade, that guys, if they're not getting their money here or feel like, in this case, not getting the ball, felt like he was getting 90 times he got the ball. But
He had 146 targets, and so I don't know how many more targets he expects, because the Cardinals have DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, they have some weapons that they can disperse the ball to.
Well, one guy we don't have is our other first-round draft pick, who was a wide receiver, and we went from having Joe Ortiz come over to the media at the Liars luncheon and say, "Hey, I guess you guys won't be asking me about wide receivers. It feels good that I'm not going to have to ask a question." And now all of a sudden, we're 5 minutes into this year's draft, and we're already asking questions about wide receivers.
But let's keep in mind that there are good players still out there, not only in the draft, but I believe Jarvis Landry is still out there, short-handed wide receiver, last played for the Browns. This thing isn't done yet. It's not September yet. They still have a long way to go, and I think it's natural for the fan base to knee-jerk and say, okay, oh, now you've left, you hung out Lamar Jackson to dry. No, you haven't. You've put a center in front of him, and you can't win without the big uglies on the trenches. But back to Hollywood Brown. This is fascinating. They've been working this apparently for weeks. He wanted out of Baltimore. We've seen him on Twitter emote the last couple of years about the lack of targets, although, like you said, he caught 90 balls. He was targeted 146 times. He dropped a bunch of passes, too. Let's not forget about that. So I don't know that how significant his relationship with Lamar Jackson is at the end of the day. Lamar wants to win. He wants to win the Super Bowl, and he's going to have to do it without Hollywood Brown.
Well, an interesting first night all the way around. We have not talked about Kyle Hamilton enough, and certainly in the lead up, he was not mocked to the Ravens because he was off the board
He was.
98% of the boards. I mean, you said you did a mock draft the other day where he
Yeah,
was there, and you're like, well, I got to take him.
he fell, and I wanted to draft Jordan Davis, but to me, this is the better player in the short term and also in the future.
Well, that's an interesting thing because we talk so much about Jordan Davis, we talk so much about the D line, and they have a couple more days now
Sure, they do.
to fulfill that need. But the safety position and that kid falling to them, I don't know how much time they spent mocking that he would be there at 14. And to your point, even if they wanted the defensive tackle, this kid would have been on the board ahead of him. And that just like Penning and these other names that we talked about that they didn't take. Even in the case of the Jermaine Jones, right?
Johnson
Excuse me. The rush edge. They had two chances to take him, and he was
passed
the
on
guy
him.
they were talking about. No, he wasn't. If they were talking about him, they would have taken him.
Yeah, what's fascinating about the Jordan Davis situation is that the Eagles traded 3 picks to leapfrog the Ravens because they were convinced that was going to be the Ravens pick, and maybe they were right. Maybe that was a pick for them, but it's hard for me to imagine if Davis was available, if the Eagles didn't leapfrog the Ravens and both players were there. I still can't imagine them taking Davis over Hamilton just based on talent and projection alone.
Well, and the way they do their board, right? I mean, they do their board in a very, very true sense. I mean, heck, they make their picks in a true sense. They took a safety and they took a center. You don't get a lot of style points for taking safeties and centers in the first round, but it also speaks to not just their pedigree in all these years. And you can put Matt Elam in there and, other guys they've taken a chance on at weird
Sure.
positions, Ed Reed in the first round. But when you take a safety or you take a center in the first round, not only do you want to see value in all that, but you're seeing the best player in the class. They have the best safety, the best center. You can't do much better in a draft than do that. The safety may not have been a position of need given how much money they spent in the offseason on the safety already. But that being said, 3 safeties on the field where Mike McDonald is in this defense. This is not this isn't them drafting John Ogden and saying we're going to get rid of Tony Jones. I mean, this is something where I don't know that they can have enough 6'4" guys that can run back in the secondary, especially guys that get after the ball the way this kid does.
Oh, what happens also if Chuck Clark gets hurt or if Marcus Williams gets hurt? People say, they didn't need him. It's not a matter of need, folks. It's a matter of value. And you're talking about a great player that they were able to select. And to me, it was an easy pick. And you made an excellent point. They took the best safety in this draft class and the best center in the draft class, and that's really indisputable. Nobody can dispute those. Those are facts. And that's all you can hope for. If you can select the best player at the position of the draft class, you're going to do some damage. You're going to do real well.
Well, teams moving around the board. Dennis Koulatsos is here, of course. You can find him Sunday morning. He'll be back on with us doing the Sunday Sports Voice back on Thursday from 3 until 5. And always at Coons Baltimore Ford, ready to sell you a new or pre-loved vehicle. You can find him out there. But all draft all the time here this weekend. It's one of our fun weekends of the year. For the league itself and value of first-round picks and the way the Rams have won a Super Bowl now and have been flippant with their T-shirt that you don't need draft picks to do this. And then other organizations with 2 picks on Thursday night and bad teams with a couple of picks and other teams with no pick at all. You know, Cleveland Browns sitting around, nothing to say. The notion of where the draft is from a value standpoint for other organizations, I'm perplexed by that because it's not just some platitude that you're like, well, the draft is the foundation of and you just say that. That's really that's got to be true all the way around. And even for the outlier Rams to win a championship, when you see so many teams sitting on the sideline in the first round without getting a player, you know, that would trouble me if the Ravens started to behave like the Redskins and didn't have draft picks.
Yeah, we don't have enough data to really say that the Rams model is the model, the best model. To me, they caught lightning in the bottle. They won the last 3 games, including the Super Bowl, by 3 points. I get it. It's a competitive league, but if that ball bounces the wrong direction, we're not talking about what they did. We're not saying F the draft picks like they did. I also think it's a matter of economics. We saw A.J. Brown from the Titans get traded to the Eagles. They extended right away $100 million, I think $57 million guaranteed. So it does, I think economics do factor in, particularly with wide receivers. They're getting paid huge money, and the Ravens were on a hook with Hollywood Brown for $13 million. He would have been a headache to sign next season. He would have wanted a big-time extension, more than likely not with the Ravens based on what we've seen. So why not take a wide receiver in the first round where you can have his rights for 5 years? You don't have to pay him a gob of money like these guys are commanding these days, Ness. And to me, I think the league is tilted now to the wide receivers being on par with the cornerbacks in terms of divas and wanting to get paid big money, or I'm going someplace else.
Well, and dictating the terms, and you know,
absolutely.
To our point, even the Ravens, who've been very good at bringing players in, they've now had 3 primary guys in Hayden Hurst, Orlando Brown, and now Hollywood Brown, all the Browns, James Brown, request trades. And first off, there never used to be trades in the NFL. So it's sort of a new business. And draft weekend becomes a linchpin, to your point, whether you're Tennessee and Philadelphia to be doing business or, you know, whether you're dealing up the board or down the board. This is about way bigger picture than most of the fans see with salary cap, years and terms, and how long you have a player under your first control. And then to your point, it feels like Hollywood Brown's been here a minute and a half. Start talking about him as a $13 million wide receiver. I start scratching my head and say he didn't feel like a $13 million wide receiver.
Absolutely not. And as I mentioned, Jarvis Landry's out there. There's other receivers out there that they can take that $13.5 million now and allocate elsewhere, right? To me, it was too much money for the player. I thought they were signing him just to keep Lamar Jackson happy, although Hollywood Brown himself wasn't happy. So I think it was best for the player, best for the team. As your good friend Mike Tomlin said, in Baltimore here, we want volunteers, highly paid volunteers, and not hostages.
Yeah, no hostages. And we'll be taking no hostages here this weekend. Tell me what's going on over Coach Baltimore Ford before we get to the rest of the weekend and all these fourth round draft picks.
Well, we're gearing up for a big Memorial Day sale. We have vehicles coming in. We have more new vehicles in stock than most dealerships. I talk to people all the time. They're coming from Delaware, New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Florida, and they're all marveling how many vehicles we have in comparison to everyone else. We may be a tall midget, but we still have vehicles for people to test drive, to feel, to see, to smell. So that's what's going on here. And plus over 250 pre-loved vehicles, late model, great condition, Maryland State inspected and ready to roll.
Well, we're going to see if we get some new model Ravens here. Lots and lots of picks as we get into Saturday. Some of them undealable, some of them still dealable. They dealt one in that pick 100, wind up moving back a couple of spots. Eric DeCosta is not afraid of being crafty. I mean, if you're a Ravens fan, don't put the dip down and go to the bathroom or go out and play catch or go out and wash the car and think you're going to come back in. It is going to be fast and furious, especially in the
Oh.
Saturday morning range once the thing gets going into the fourth round. And we talk about what you want about Friday night, and there'll be players, but no one has been stocked with middle round draft picks quite the way the Ravens have been blessed with that this year.
Yeah, I believe he's got what, 6 fourth-round draft picks right now. You can bet he's going to package a couple of those to move up in the third, maybe the second round. Who knows? Stay tuned. It's been so much fun, and it'll continue to be so.
Well, we have an eye on it. Dennis will be here on Sunday morning as well as probably joining me on Monday as well, and recapping the whole thing as we make our way through the weekend. Luke and I got after the first round draft picks. They're in Iowa and Notre Dame, and a center and a safety, and Tyler Lindenbaum, and safety Kyle Hamilton. You can read more about that out at BaltimorePositive.com. I am Nestor. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking draft. Baltimore Positive and all the activities in Owings Mills.